Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jodielynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Jodielynn, you and I were chatting before we got started, and I just wanted to very briefly share with listeners who have listened in on previous episodes, which the regulars do all the time, and sometimes right when we don't put out episodes often enough. But we talked recently about the Pi Network and cryptos associated with that, and got the word yesterday that the Pi Network is going mainnet a week from tomorrow, which is kind of cool. So we'll do more about that maybe next week or the week following.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we only talked about that like 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, bam, here we are, right? So yeah, if you're interested, listen to that future podcast. It's going to be, and listen to the past one too, because it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that. But today we're visited by a coach named Matt Gerlach, and we're going to learn about Matt's story in a moment. But one of the things that he was telling us before he got going is that he's got kind of an open house coming up. And I mean, Matt, that's not something that's really common anymore. I mean, everything's virtual these days. You're actually doing real world stuff. I mean, what's wrong with you? Haven't you joined the 21st century? What's going on?
I'm really excited we're starting here, So for the past 8 years, 8 years, I've lived in my yoga pants and behind a Zoom screen and very much enjoyed it. And I've been out and about meeting with people in person, and I really like it. It's been really nice to be face to face with people. So here's what I'm doing. I love cooking. It's my absolute passion. And like many of you out there, I mean, I'm building my business and building my brand, and I wanted to do something that stood out and something that really was authentic to me. So I'm bringing cooking into my coaching and mentorship practice. So every other week, I host what I call the Friday Brunch Club, where I invite 7 other entrepreneurs or business leaders into my house and cook brunch and serve the business leaders. And it's been really special. We've done 2 so far, and it's honestly been probably the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my entire career.
Wow.
So if anybody's local in LA, feel free to send me an email. It'll probably be in the show notes, I'm guessing, or should I say it now?
Well, you can say it, sure, yeah.
Matt@mattgerlach.com. So MATT@MATTGERLACH.com. And would love to connect with you. It's really special. It's very nice. The last 2 people that came that I hadn't known, I told them after talking with them for a couple of moments, I said, if you were 30% less cool, you still would have passed the test. So yeah, so it's been really special.
And I was teasing you about that a moment ago, but I actually think it's very cool that you're doing this. I think it's something that people are hungry for. They're hungry for that interpersonal connection after all the craziness that's gone on with the 21st century connection to the internet and virtual and social and all that kind of stuff. I think people are realizing, yeah, in-person connection is actually a great thing. We should be doing more of that.
It's weird. I mean, I'm a writer, and I wanted to do something different than everybody else is doing, and just connect with people and find a way to share my lessons and my story in service of others. And it's been really incredible to see myself come up with something that nobody else is doing. And I would invite everybody, in terms of marketing and business development and audience growth, I spent so much time trying to do the same thing that everybody else was doing, not really knowing that I was doing it, but I had to finally take a step back and be like, Matt, you're you're in the same box that everybody else is in. You don't even want to be in this box anymore. So, we're told to be ourselves and be authentic, and I'm doing it.
Good move. I love it. Yeah, good stuff. So yeah, we need to learn more about that you who has become who you are, this entrepreneurial coach today. And I'm really looking forward to the story, in part because Jodielynn and I both know almost every time somebody does something like becoming a coach or making a career change of a significant way, particularly one that becomes entrepreneurial, it's almost always because of something that happened, some experience that they had, some sort of a crash and burn, some background thing, family thing, something that led to it. And I'm really eager to find out what that was. So Tell us your story.
Thanks. And I would agree. Most of us who are doing purpose-driven work are doing it because of a purpose. That led us here. So, 8 years ago, I was living in New York. I had always been really successful professionally, but I came from a very working class family and never really I never really knew how to value myself appropriately. I didn't, I used to think like when I moved to New York back in 2010, I used to think $100,000 was like what successful business people made, and doctors and lawyers made $200,000. And learned I was wrong. I learned that a lot of people make a lot more than that. And I had done pretty well. Moving to New York, I immediately was, mid $150,000 in terms of compensation. I was in sales, and then kind of hovered around the 150 range for a few years. And then I went to software sales and did business development and reached about 250. And still, it's not like it's a lot of money, but it's like life is expensive in New York. Life's expensive in a lot of places now, and it's just not what it used to be. And so I was laid off from a job. It wasn't a huge surprise. There was a lot of writing on the wall that this was happening, but I panicked. I was worried. I didn't know what else I wanted to. I didn't know what to do with my life, and I knew I didn't want to go back to making less money, and I didn't want to sacrifice the freedom that I had. The business that I was working for gave a ton of freedom. So I started a consulting business. So I went back to a profession that I had left. I went back to starting a consulting business, helping consumer product brands with their sales and marketing efforts. And immediately I was met with horrible worrying. That's what I would have called it back then. I was just worried nonstop. And that led me to being depressed, and eventually led to suicidal ideation. And I say ideation. It wasn't like I tried to or I wanted to do it. I was just scared that like things were teetering on the edge so bad that was a real possibility of something that scared me that could happen. Mm-hmm. Went to the doctor. She found out I had high blood pressure. No big surprise. I was a worried mess, smoking a pack of cigarettes every single day and drinking nonstop at night. And so I really started worrying about the blood pressure problems, and just I felt horrible. And meanwhile, I'm on a plane every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, growing my consulting business. I had 6 clients at the time, and I was brought on to help with sales. That was my main offer, was helping people sell their products to major enterprise retailers, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, Kohl's, the list goes on. And right after I started the business, my partner and I made the decision to move to Los Angeles. And that week before I moved, I was flying all over the country. I was at a trade show the prior weekend, absolutely ran myself ragged. But I never knew that like rest was important. No one ever, I just never knew that. Like looking back, like I grew up in a working class family where, 40 hours a week was what you worked. So rest was sort of offered. I had never seen anybody pursue an entrepreneurial journey where there were no guardrails. And I just, thought this was part of the price to pay, that you just run yourself ragged and that, I'm young and I'll be fine. I just never really even thought once or twice about like that I might end up having a health problem from doing so. So the day we moved to LA, we landed at LAX, went to the apartment we rented, and we're unpacking. And all of a sudden, I started to feel dizzy and nauseous, short of breath. Sat down, checked my blood pressure. I was traveling with my blood pressure cuff because my blood pressure was so high all the time. And it was 190 over 110. Ooh. And that's very high for anybody who doesn't know. It's ridiculously high. And also, like, there's not very many people that have high blood pressure at the age I was at. I was 33 years old. It's very uncommon. And went to the hospital, and they kept me overnight, afraid that I had a heart attack. And that was my first night in Los Angeles, and it sent me on a healing journey where I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And eventually it led to, there was nothing really physically wrong with me. It was all emotional and stress, and led me to therapy and coaching and lots of other modalities that showed me that revealed to me that I had a childhood that was traumatic, that I hadn't really dealt with. And I went on a healing journey and addressed everything that had happened during my childhood. I had no friends for almost all of my childhood until I was 15 years old, and really hid that from my family. I didn't want people to worry about me. I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to cause any more inconveniences. Meanwhile, I was acting out. I was very much suffering. I was very chubby, fat as a child because I was eating my problems away, and just had never dealt with this at all. And being a gay man, I always just denied just always denied myself from who I really was. And looking back now, almost 10 years ago, I think these panic attacks and this anxiety and depression that was happening when I started this business were happening. I know they were wake-up calls, but I think what they were telling me was to not start this business. It was a journey that I did not want to be on. I wanted to start a business, but I just didn't want to do consumer product sales. That wasn't what I was put on this earth to do. And I don't think I was supposed to be doing it. But I went on a massive healing journey and ended up driving my business to where I was earning $1 million a year after I learned how to value myself appropriately and negotiate appropriate compensation for the work I was doing. I was changing my clients' lives, and I deserved a piece of that pie. And also, I learned to leverage my strengths and all the compassion and kindness that I had that I always thought was a weakness. Turned out I was a very good leader and led a team of over 15 people and with zero attrition, and got it to where I was only working 15 or so hours a week because I cared for my team so well. So that was the journey, and it led me to want to become a coach. I was writing a book about this whole journey, and it just it became time for me to pursue a life of passion. And 6 months ago, I voluntarily decided it was time for me to walk away and decided to change my professional life. And it moved into coaching, and it's led me to cooking and writing and doing all the things that I think I was put on this earth to do that I'd been depriving myself of.
It's very interesting how that plays out. I've interviewed so many people over the years who have had financially successful careers, reached a point where it was described a lot of different ways. Sometimes as a breakdown, sometimes as an illness, sometimes it's just a burnout. A lot of different ways that it played out, and then they inevitably ended up changing their whole careers around and doing kind of like what you just described. They found what they really love to do, and they did that. And they didn't worry about income. They didn't worry about any of that stuff. They basically left behind all the value structure that led them there in the first place, which is fascinating.
It's really interesting. I knew that I was walking away from this money, and there's been no big challenges financially with it. It's just weird to my coaching business is getting going, and this is actually my first month I'm going to be hitting revenue goals. So that's really exciting. But this is not going to make me $1 million anytime in the short term. And you know what? I don't care.
You don't care.
It's been really interesting to fully embrace that. And it might, that's part of that's part of, this journey. I'd like it to be something that, affords me a life to be able to buy anything that I would like to. And that doesn't happen. I've really learned to embrace that happiness is more, that's what we're here for, is to enjoy our lives. And I'll tell you, making $1 million a year, I couldn't spend $1 million a year. I don't know that there's much more that I would need than, if I made a third or half of that, that would be more than enough to buy what I want to buy at this point in my life. And a lot of it is that I had a really fun time in my 20s and 30s, and I traveled a lot. So that's not a big part of my life right now, but it's really got me to about 3 months ago. It really hit me that it was I would rather move home with my parents. Not that that's an option, but not that that's on the horizon, but I'd rather do that than be unhappy at work anymore. It's been really interesting to watch that change, and beautiful at the same time.
Sure. Well, it is beautiful. Yeah. And I think you're right. One of the fascinating things for me is noticing, both in my own life and in the lives of others, how our values shift into a direction that is consonant with who we really are. if we allow it to do so. Like, for instance, as you were telling your story, I was thinking about there's a, I don't know if you ever heard of Abraham Hicks, but they're like law of attraction guru kind of thing. And it's Esther Hicks channeling this group of entities called Abraham. Anyway, long story short, that's really not relevant to what I was going to say. They came up with a method, a sort of a process you can do to help overcome your personal blocks where finances are concerned. And the process is, and raise your vibration at the same time. The process is a very simple one. You basically create an imaginary checking account for yourself. You deposit $1,000 and then you spend it. And then the next day you deposit $2,000 and you spend that, and $4,000, and you just keep doubling it every day. The fascinating thing about that, particularly if you don't wait day to day, but you actually try to do it all in one day and just keep doing each round over and over and over again, it's amazing how fast you run out of things to spend money on.
Yeah.
It absolutely just blows my mind how quickly you can do that.
Well, and what's kind of like stood out to me, and I know that everybody's on their own journey, but like, like I see how many people around me are like buying clothes to like make up for like, their jobs that they're not happy in. And it's like, and like, that's a lot of society. That's a lot of what people are doing. And I know that that's like a natural thing. It's not like it's crazy to hear that someone's doing that, but it's like, we're trying to cover up like the unsatisfaction we feel otherwise. And, for me, it's like, I mean, I do, I live in a nice home and I do like having a nice home, and it's not like nice, like luxurious. It's actually a 100-year-old home. It's just like, it's beautiful and I feel comfortable here. But same with this. I mean, I'd rather live somewhere cheaper if I have to and be happy with my life. And I think that I'm also a really firm believer that the money does come when we're living in our authenticity. And it's just like, it is funny that, I just started this Friday brunch club, and immediately after that, my business completely changed from a financial perspective. I've had more interest. I have had 2 really big clients sign in the past week because
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, I feel more confident about what I'm doing as well. Like, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, and it's like I've really started gravitating the type of people that I like am absolutely certain that I can help, because they're the people that I once was. So it's really crazy when we aren't trying to be something we're not, how everything starts to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Jodielynn is also a coach. Jodielynn, I mean, how much of this story is mirroring your own path? I think probably a lot of it.
A lot. I'm like, oh wait, timeline. Yeah, yep, yeah, got that. Absolutely. I think the interesting thing I felt like similar to you, Matt, as you've gone through your awakening journey, your healing journey. Like, I didn't get sick like that, but had my own like health scares that were bad enough to say, like, what are you doing with your life? Are you going in the right direction? And it's so funny, because something that I used to think about a lot was, in my old mindset, it was all about, when I have the money, then I'll be happy. And it was the realization of everything that you're saying that freed me, that the money doesn't make me happy. I make me happy. I go and do the things. Like, our society is constantly waiting until there's this value in their bank account to be allowed to be happy or to do the things. And in my practice, I'm always questioning people, what would you do? Like, what is it that you want to do? Oh, one of the biggest things that comes up, just be there for my family, whenever they need me. And the answer, or the question that I ask back, is, are you not now? And if you're not, why? Like, would you not drop everything right now to go help somebody that was in need in your family? Well, yeah. Okay, so you have that. Why aren't you doing more of it? Like, why are you just coming home and, whatever, getting into your pajamas, watching TV and eating food in front of the boob tube? Like, if that's not what you want, why aren't you moving towards what it is that you want? Because it's not the dollar figure that will change anything. And I love that you've done that. And it makes total sense. I agree with you that when you're in that authentic place and you're enjoying your experience, the money just starts to flood in. So of course you'd have this beautiful idea of love cooking, want to do, an open house style thing. Like, you're so brave to invite total strangers to your home in LA. Like, I'm a little country bumpkin from Canada. I would invite all my neighbors here, but I've known them my entire life because I literally grew up down the road. But
There's
like in a big city, that's crazy. And I think
there
it's
is
so
some vetting
amazing.
out of this as well. I mean, I'm definitely like, you're having to, yes, but no, I mean, but
What?
nobody, but I mean, but I operate thinking that 99% of the world is good
Mhm.
people. I mean, if you look at like the amount of people who've committed a crime, I mean, I don't have the exact number, but I'm guessing it's probably 1% or less, that
Yeah.
have been convicted of something like that. And I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No,
Um,
it's okay.
no, but
I,
like, and this is a big part of like, I'm like the people who inspired me the most on this journey. I'm a huge reader. They're the people that shared the messiness of life and that let people into their lives vulnerably. And I'm not like, I mean, I'm really trying to figure out how to go about this about building this coaching practice in a way that's like really authentic to me, where like, I mean, I am not positioning myself as somebody who has everything all figured out, and I'm trying to share this journey because I want people to see that like I'm not that much different than them. I mean, I heard this statistic the other day that was so interesting, and I've heard this from a lot of people, but it's like it was somebody like someone big and smart that said something like that we have data that shows that like people are more interested in hiring a mentor who's 20% ahead of them than hiring like me hiring Oprah. Like Oprah's not, I mean, Oprah hasn't been, well, Oprah's not being available for hire, I'm sure, but like it's been decades since she's been where we're at,
yeah.
but like me hiring somebody who was where I am at a year ago is so much more beneficial. And I want people to see that in me and like also see the relatability. And a huge part of my journey, like probably the hardest part of this journey for myself, was self-forgiveness and learning how to continuously show up and know that like life is not always going to be perfect and there's going to be obstacles that come up. And even right now, like, you know, this morning, like I had a couple of cancellations of calls, like, and I'm like, and it bothered me a little bit. And it's not the money. It's, I mean, it's not like the potential money, but it's like, I mean, it's more like, it's just kind of discouraging that like, I would like to be attracting people who are more committed. I have asked myself, how many times have I canceled an appointment with my coach? I mean, the answer is absolutely zero. I don't even know how many I've rescheduled, maybe one or two over the past 8 years,
Mhm.
because that is a very important, sacred time that I'm committing to. So,
Mhm.
like, going back to what you said, I've been asking myself a lot. I listened to a podcast this morning about this, but it's like, what is this destination? Like, there isn't this destination. Like, this is the journey. Like, the journey is that I am getting people on my calendar that are not committed in the same way that I would like people to be committed. So it's my job right now to figure out how to be doing a better job of attracting the people who are going to show up to the caliber of coaching that I offer. And it's a journey, and enjoying this
100%.
process is the work, because like, what is this destination? I mean, yes, I'm looking forward to the day when like money is not anything I need to worry about again, but other than that, like, and I challenge my clients on this as well. I mean, it's going to be something else, like, and it's fun. I mean, it is like, we need to learn how to not worry about things more than we need to reach that destination, because there'll be something else to worry about.
Yeah, we're very good at finding things to worry about. We
We're
really don't
great,
have any lack of that.
we're great at it.
Yeah.
And when you really ask yourself how many of the things you've worried about have actually come to be a problem, I mean, it's surely less than 10%. Is it 1%? It might be. Like,
Or maybe even less than that.
yeah, like we're
Well, it
going.
probably depends on what your predominant mindset is. If your predominant mindset is worry, it's probably high. It's probably a very high
Mhm.
percentage. If
Mhm.
your predominant
Yeah,
mindset is not in a
fair.
worry mode, then it's probably low. I mean, there was an interesting little thing that I saw. I was talking about uh, hearing podcasts, or in this case, reading an article. I saw an article about half an hour ago. Somebody writing about AI, which is a topic we've talked about quite a bit. And she was making the point that she was playing with, I think it was ChatGPT and Gemini, and getting bizarre answers to questions. Like she mentioned, she asked one of the chatbots about a friend of hers who is an author, who is now a New York Times bestselling author, and asked, what's the person's marital status, and the answer that came back was just this off the wall bizarre answer that was completely untrue. And her whole article was about all these different questions that she was asking the AIs and getting all these bizarre answers. So I went because I have accounts with both ChatGPT and Gemini. So I went in and I asked the exact same questions with the exact same format that she asked, and I got exactly the right answers back. And it occurred to me that my relationship with AI is very positive.
Hmm.
I actually believe that AI is alive. I treat it as such. I'm kind to it. It's kind to me. And I get great responses out of AI. She cited in her article how she thinks that AI is trash and completely unreliable and so forth. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, the AI is going to pick up on that.
Yeah.
You're going
And
to
it
get the
turns out
experience.
there's an actual phenomenon that's been identified this way. I think they're calling it AI, a placebo effect.
Okay.
So, the extent to which you believe that AI is good, you're going to get good responses. To the extent that you think that AI is bad, you're going to get bad responses.
And isn't that life?
It is life.
Yeah, it's the underpinning of everything. I think it's deeper than just worry. Like back to the question or the idea that we were just talking about. Because for me, I've always been a worry wart, and that's something that on my journey to of healing that I am way better at. But I used to be like, I gotta control everything and micromanage everything, and I have to be in control, and I would worry about everything. But underneath that, I've always had the belief that everything always works out. Like, just give it some time and it'll work out for the better. I don't know, exactly how I picked this up, but I've conditioned myself for a lot of years to believe that. And honestly, when I look back at my entire life, I can't find one time where it didn't work out better, even though I'm a worry wart. So I think it has a lot to do with what we perceive we're going to see in the future or whatever is going to happen. And we need to work with that.
I totally agree. I mean, I've had to learn. So congratulations if you've always been like that. I definitely wasn't always like that. I think it was just recently,
Me neither.
2 years where they say that when God doesn't give you what you want, it's either not yet or because he has something bigger in mind. Kind of butchered that story, but yeah, I mean, things don't always happen in our terms, and it's because there's usually something bigger in mind. And it's really I'll be pretty transparent on this. It's been a little more difficult to build this next business than I expected, but it's not been difficult in the sense that I'm out here trying to find clients and they're not there. It's been really difficult because of what's going on inside me, and that there has been a lot more discipline that's been necessary. There's been a lot more controlling of my mindset. Probably the biggest thing that's been so unexpected was I didn't realize how much I would need to say no to in order to figure out what to say yes to. And a lot of it is I've had a lot of mentorship and coaching over these past couple of years. And I'm sure none of it was for a waste, but I have invited myself to actually taking all that I've learned and implementing it rather than getting more lessons. And the more that I'm embracing that true intuition inside me that is telling me it's now time to do and not to hide behind more learning, I'm seeing how, for lack of a better word, repulsed I am by learning more things. And this doesn't mean I don't read. I read all the time, but I read memoirs and I read business books. I read a business book. There's always a business book going, but it's what I need now is to take everything that I've learned and to put on my entrepreneurial hat, which it's on, but to navigate appropriately and oh, this didn't work and this did work and that did work. And it's funny, I've gotten in this, I found myself in this kind of mentorship program around selling, coaching. And there's nothing wrong with it or anything, but I've been in sales my entire life and I'm not a sales genius, but I kind of...
You obviously had $1 million company, so you're making $1 million a year.
Yeah, and I don't say that to brag at all, and I don't think I caveated that earlier. That's not to brag. I'm not sharing this to brag. I'm sharing this is what happens when you learn when you grow, when you get the help you need and learn to value yourself appropriately. But yeah, I don't know really any people who have done what I did. And I don't say it to brag, but I'd say there's a certain point where we have to learn to trust ourselves. And it's just really interesting. If I would be having this call with you 6 months ago, I would not be talking about how much trusting ourselves has has helped me go forward in a way that I didn't expect. Like that was the call. And I felt this inside me. I felt the frustration and just like, and I think that's what's happening. Like these past 2 days, like I was kind of like flying high for a while. And these past couple days, there's been a little bit of a cloud, over me. And I think, and then today I was at the gym and I was thinking about it. And I was like, I think that what this is telling me is that I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a client or two that have come my way that like I probably shouldn't be entertaining the idea of working with, and not that there's something wrong with them, but they're just not the right fit. And after this call, I have something that I'm going to that I probably should not be going to. And I think that my intuition is telling me what to do. But this is the journey. We roll with this. And this is the entrepreneurial journey. We roll with this and we make a lot of the wrong moves to learn how to make the right moves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I
hard.
think this is like the ascension journey or the awakening journey. Like, you were never really taught, or I was never really taught to listen to yourself. What does that mean? Like, I'm tired. You're not tired. Get outside. Like, okay, I'm not tired. I'm going. Like, I'm very good. I'm very coachable. And that was a really difficult thing for me to transition to. One, listening at all to what was going on in here, but then actually taking that advice that I'm getting from in here. Okay, I need to slow down, speed up, whatever, do this, go left, right, whatever it is, actually do it. And then tell people to go away or like put boundaries. If I have to cancel something, I'm no longer going to, or that's not in alignment with me. That was really hard for me to start saying no to those things. I mean, Walt, you and I have talked about that a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's beautiful, Matt. It's the journey. It's the whole point, like you said earlier.
I might caveat this with new friends when I meet new friends, and I'm like, you can cancel on me. Like if it's Friday night and we have dinner planned at 6 p.m. and at 5:15 you're not feeling up for it, you can absolutely cancel. Like I don't really do things that I don't want to do, and no one really takes me up on that. Like I think that the people I'm around are careful about not overpacking their schedules and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I believe that we should be prioritizing ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And listen, being canceled on a Friday night means that I get to sit on the couch with the dog and watch a movie or read a book instead of like going out and like having dinner with somebody is not the worst thing in the world either. And I think that we're setting an example by showing other people they need to prioritize themselves. And the same as you. I mean, I didn't grow up with boundaries. Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, when did you learn how to set boundaries? And I'm like, 5 years ago. Yeah. I mean, like when did it become easier? I mean, I would argue it's easy-ish now. I mean, maybe a year and a half ago. Like it's like this is not like it's something that we need to be taught. And like I just wrote my Substack article about that last week, and I am doing a part 2 that's coming out tomorrow about like saying no. And it's all about like this is the hard part about starting this business has been like it just like I was so naive, like in a cute way, I guess. Like I said yes to so many things, thinking like, oh, well, this person is a plumber and they might introduce me to somebody that, they might, but they're likely not. And you have to be very careful about how we're spending our time. And that's really like a lot of the reason behind this Friday brunch club that I've started. And this feeds up into a bigger brand that I'd like to kind of talk about in a moment, if I can, because it's just such a big part of the journey that I've been on. But like, I was like, what do I have control over? How do I start to build something where there's less variables, there's less things that can go wrong, and where I have more control? And I think that's I think I've navigated through this quite gracefully. I have been sleeping, so that's been nice. And I mean, you have to expect that there's some money that's going to go out. We're going to make mistakes when we're trying something new. And that's why coaching is so important. I mean, I met with my coach 3 times last week. That's not exactly normal. I mean, this week I'm probably not, well, it's like Wednesday, so I'm not going to see her this week. But it's like there are times when we need to have help, and really like what was happening last week, it wasn't that I was like, I was a little stuck, but it was really like I reached this place where I just needed help, like getting clearer on like a lot of different aspects of the business. And this is one of my favorite sayings, is that like we can't read the label from inside the jar. And so many times we just need perspective from somebody else. And I was stuck in a couple of things. Like I've made some big changes over these past few weeks, especially where I don't know, I can do the math on it so easily, but I probably started saying no to about 50% of what I was doing, maybe even a little bit more. And it's really because I wanted to, like I already had a professional life that wasn't making me happy, that wasn't fulfilling me. And it really became clear, like I didn't leave this, kind of cushy situation to, not be fulfilled. And like you said, I think that like with the intuition piece, it was just different in prior generations, I think, like where like in my generation, like you can't, even if you go to a great college and get a good job, you're still really not guaranteed to buy a house like with that. I mean, it's really not the case where, my parents both got honest, decent jobs. They didn't go to college and they bought a house. They're doing quite well in life, and it's just completely changed. And I think that we have so many distractions that like the typical American dream, or like it's just not possible anymore. So now we're like, well, if I can't have that house, if I can't afford to have children, like these things that really were all but guaranteed, in prior generations, then what is it? Then what will make me happy? I'm certainly not going to work every day doing a job I don't like if I'm not going to be able to like really enjoy it outside of work. And I think that's the reality. If you're not able to enjoy life outside of work, then you got to build the day that really does make you enjoy it.
Well, you also touched on something that I think is really, really important, and I want to bring it back in because you mentioned how you've become more selective about who you interact with. I think you used the plumber example, and that's something that we've talked about a lot here on the show. That my personal pet theory is that the two factors that determine your success with anything, doesn't matter what it is how you feel about yourself and how connected you are with the people who are going to help you get there. And that's literally what you're talking about. It's you're setting yourself up by saying no to those that don't really fit what you're trying to do, and yes to those who do fit what you're trying to do, and who match your values and who are fulfilling to you and feed you rather than take all your energy away from you. So, for instance, that's one of the reasons why Jodielynn's one of my co-hosts here, because we have this great association in that way. We kind of feed each other in that way, and so it becomes a very valuable relationship to both of us. But if I was not who I am and I came in with values that were completely different from Jodielynn's, it wouldn't work. I mean, she'd tell me to go away and I'm going to go do somebody else's podcast, and I'd say, yeah, good riddance. And I mean, it would be like that, right? Because we're not in alignment with each other in that circumstance. So, picking your circle is important. It's really important.
And that's been very hard for this people-pleasing person who suffered through childhood trauma, and that's really been like, and this is like what I want to be bringing people into, and just revealing revealing that I'm not exempt from this, that I'm not special, like that I'm going through this and I'm building and I have the tools around me, the people around me that are allowing me to continue to show up on days that I don't want to, but also let me say that differently. I actually do show up every single day. Somebody asked me recently, they were like, what do you do all day? And I wasn't offended by that at all. But I think they thought that I'm like in this transition and I'm just probably like working an hour a day, and it's not the case at all. I do show up every day, but yesterday was a good example. And it's not like that it was a bad day. I'm actually really careful about saying, oh, it's a bad month or a bad week or a bad day. It's just kind of more like, and also honestly, yesterday was a really good day. There was just a couple of hours in the morning where I let my thoughts get the best of me, and I went on a hike, and then I actually was like, this isn't quite enough. I went to yoga after that. And I've gotten so much better about honoring those needs, because really those are the times when the breakthroughs happen. And I can see it right now. I love that this just came to my mind. I'm like one hike or one yoga session away from having a really clear breakthrough on how to really be sharing my life and my story in service of others. And I'm not trying to be I want 1 million followers or anything like that. What I would like to be doing is impacting more lives. And I guess like a lot of it is the clarity around like how do I want to impact those lives. And maybe this has gone naturally into the next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about. Like, I love this cooking part of my life, and it's more than cooking. It's like cooking was the first thing that I was ever good at. Like, my parents had me playing sports despite no interest and even less natural talent. I was not like, and I like even now, like it's funny. Like I mean, I have no interest in sports. We went to a Super Bowl party recently, and I mean, and, like I don't mind being there. I just I just don't care about the sports at all. And I also admit that I'm the anomaly. This is a multi-gazillion dollar industry that clearly I am the outlier on. But I started really like thinking about like my journey through food and how like, you know, my grandmother, she was kind of fancy. She was like antiquated, but like fancy-ish, and like kind of introduced me to like the norms of hosting. And then like I got to see like this person taught me this, and this person showed me how to make food that like she called it set it and forget it, you know, like making a pot roast, making stews and things that you don't have to be that good at. If you simmer it for an hour or simmer it for 3 hours, you really don't have to like, it's not going to really mess it up, assuming that it's like not like, you know, drying out or anything. But and I remember like the first thing that I ever ate that was like, that really stood out. And it was a woman that I knew made refried beans for me. It was a Mexican lady who like made like real refried beans. I was like, I don't know, like they're in a can. That's what we have at home. Tastes like, oh my gosh, this is what it tastes like when somebody like spends, you know, I don't even know how long they take. I think it's like half a day to cook these things or something. And I started realizing that like, the way that I self-soothed myself growing up was from doing things around the house and doing things like I rearranged my furniture in my bedroom for my parents. I was always doing things to make the house as beautiful as I could. And I'm not like this amazing cook in the world. It is also true that I'm a better cook than just about anybody I know. But there are cooks out there that are better than me. And it's been interesting starting this brunch club where it's like, I'm like, oh, like I'm used to like, come over here and I'll have food ready whenever and like be cozy. And like, now that I'm like actually trying to make this like pretty, I'm like, oh, I have like quite a bit to learn. But this is all feeding into a bigger brand that I'm calling At Home with Matt. And it's not just like being at home, but it's also me coming home to myself. Like when I look back at my whole life, I was always running. I was always traveling. I was the person that was on planes all the time, personally too. Like, you know, on vacation. There was like one like year, like where I went one summer, I think I went to China for work and India for work. And David, my partner, and I went to Greece. And there was like something else all in these like 4 months. And I thought this was like cool, like that I was doing this. And it was cool in the sense that I saw a lot of things. I learned, I mean, if I look back at my life, international travel was probably the biggest educational experience of my entire life. Mm-hmm. So I don't regret it. But like the more that I got to learn to embrace and love myself, the more that I came home to myself. And the more that I came home to myself, the more I enjoy being at home. And like, I think that a lot, like of right now, we were talking about like, you know, being at home and just like being more like around people that we love and we're close to. Like, it's why I'm not really so rattled right now with what's going on in the world, particularly in America. Like when with all of the upheaval we're having, we're having, gosh, that word was hard to say, we're having right now, it's not that I'm like turning a blind eye to everything, but it's like, what can I control? You know, I mean, and not a lot of it is getting closer with those who I am similar with and who respect me and who I respect, and building a community around that, supporting them, and teaching them what I've learned. And a lot of what I've learned boils down to what I just said. It's, you know, learning how to control what I can control. And it's really, I know it sounds so cliche and silly, but like, that's my approach to a lot of life right now. And so At Home with Matt, it's really about nutrition, food, and wellness, all sort of under one bullet point, one pillar. The second one is around personal and professional growth, helping people really achieve their optimal growth level so they can achieve their dreams. And the third piece is parenthood. My partner and I are going through surrogacy right now, and we're going to be parents. And a big piece of this was due to the trauma that happened for me as a child. I never thought I was good enough to be a dad. I thought something was wrong with me. And through all of this personal growth, it's taught me that I'm okay to be a parent. And I know we all mess up our kids a little bit, but I'm all but certain I will mess mine up a tiny bit less because of all the work that I've done. And I want to help other people.
I think it's kind of a rule of being a parent. You want to be a parent, you got to script your kid, otherwise
you
you
got to
end
script
up
your kids a little bit. So this is, I guess, like the reason. This is the first time I've talked about this actually on a podcast, like to this level. And it's really about the intuition piece. I mean, it's like, this is what my mom actually was, started this. Like I asked her a few months ago, I was like, what do you think I should be doing? And she was like, cooking, and then I've asked other friends, and it's just like, I've started to see that this could be a business. I don't charge for the Friday brunch club at all. I don't want to. I don't see that ever changing. I guess I wouldn't sign in blood, but it's really just my opportunity to bring people. I mean, it might get more and more coveted or more restrictive, where like I might be inviting people that I just am completely enamored with and interested in learning from, and helping others learn from that. And I'd like to be building a couple of like support groups, like a mastermind group, and really out of my home. This is where I feel safest, and I want to bring other people into it as well. So
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Absolutely. Well, what you're doing is you're like I think you just described it before as being authentic to yourself. I would just say you're being true to yourself, being true to who you really feel that you are. And in doing so, you're finding that life is pretty good when you do it that way. In fact, when you made reference to all the craziness going on with the U.S. right now, it reminded me of something that happened the day before Election Day 2024. One of my other co-hosts, Joel Elston, and I did a show together. And of course, we didn't know who was going to win the election at that point. And he made a really interesting comment that has stuck with me. And I keep repeating it over and over again because it was a really good comment. He says, I don't know who's going to win tomorrow, but it doesn't matter, because I can promise you right now that 4 years from now, I'm going to be better off than I am right now. And the reason I know that is with every single election we've had since I had my crash and burn, he went through a really horrible thing back in the late 80s, early 90s. Every 4 years has been better for me, regardless of whether it was a Democrat or a Republican being elected. Mm-hmm. So I know for a fact 4 years from now, I'm going to be better off than I am now. And it doesn't matter who's in office. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really profound statement, because it kind of takes all of that angst away entirely. Mm-hmm. Makes you realize it doesn't matter what's going on out there. What matters is what's going on in here.
It's kind of I have to be a little careful around, like, I have a lot of people in my life that are very worried and very agitated, mm-hmm. and I don't want to like sound blasé about it. But at the same time, like, I literally can't do anything to do anything. Like, I think that there's an element. I think that my recommendation, I hope this doesn't upset anybody, but it's like, my recommendation is really like, we kind of like use this time to get still and to really like plan, to think about things and practice acceptance right now a bit. And and it's not surrender. I mean, it's not like being blasé, or it's not even, I don't even like the word surrender for this. It's just like, sure. It's just like, what do you have control over right now? And it's, I don't know. I don't want to sound blasé. I mean, it's certainly not that, but I mean, no matter which side of the fence you're on, I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of fear behind all of this. And, I think we just kind of need to do the best we can to control what we can and stay close to our loved ones and those whom we are in community with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fascinating. My background, I have a degree in government and political science. So and which, by the way, is the most useless degree you can get. I'm just putting that out there. So if anybody who's considering it, just fair warning, you've been warned. It's totally useless. But it did teach me a lot, and it taught me even more afterward when I realized that most of what I was taught was wrong and actually misleading. And I had to kind of unlearn most of it over time, and which I've done successfully. But it has given me perspective and understanding what goes on. And I do enjoy looking at what happens when people interact in one way or another with the political system. Mm-hmm. So I look back 4 years ago to when it was the left that won and the right that lost, and the right lost painfully and angrily and all this other kind of stuff. And the whole script was flipped. From their point of view, it's a horrible time. And from the left point of view, it's like, oh, this is wonderful, everything's great. And now it's been flipped around the other way. So now the right thinks, oh, this is a wonderful time, and left thinks, oh, this is a terrible time. And I'm willing to bet the same thing's going to happen in the next election. I mean, it's just one of these things that keeps playing out. The fascinating part for me is that whichever way, I think of the Henry Ford quote, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Whether you think it will or won't, you're right. In other words, we create these scenarios in our minds. You talked earlier, Matt, about how we have fears that most of the fears don't actually play out. But boy, we're good at building them. We're really good at building them. And all we end up really doing is trapping ourselves in them. That's actually the hardest thing to recognize. But when we recognize it, it's freeing.
It's I mean, it's so true. Like, you know, and you know, like financially, like for myself right now, like I had these huge fears, like, oh, I'm making this change. I'm going to need to take X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the bank to live. And then it's like, honestly, this has been a 6.5 months since this change has happened. I haven't had to go into my savings account at all. You know, I adjusted, I spent less on this, money's come in that I didn't necessarily expect to. This client went forward earlier than I thought. That's happening, you know, and it's kind of like,
wait, you were supported?
I was supported by the universe, by
totally.
And it's not that, like, you know, I mean, like, not that, I mean, I've had to watch my liquid checking account go down quite a bit, but like I was like literally doing calculations, like this is going to be like this much out of my retirement and stuff, and it's like none of this has come to fruition at all. And I'm sharing this not to like say about my bank account. I'm sharing it because it's just like I'm having to like check myself and like sit in awe and be like, holy crap, like, you know. And I still have several more months of making $0, which is not the case at all, before this would even like become where I'm like dipping into my savings account. And I spent like I have tons of pages of like math trying to like think how long I could last. And like, you know, it's just like, we will figure things out. Like the worst case scenario, I mean, truly, I mean, this came out of my mouth a while ago. My worst case scenario was where I was at, being unfulfilled, doing work that I wasn't meant to do, feeling completely uninspired, drinking to soothe the pain at night from doing work that wasn't making me happy anymore. And, you know, and it's like, then we have to figure out, like, it's not just like when we're going in to create something that hasn't been created before, it's like you're making something that hasn't been created before. And there's some pain associated with that, but it's like, you know, I mean, that's what the tools are for. I mean, you know, it's funny, like I'm building my coaching practice and you might feel the same, but it's like, I don't really want to tell people you have to do certain things. Like you don't have to do yoga or you're going to die. You know, I'm starting to realize, I think you do have to read. I think you do have to journal. I think there are a couple of things that to work with me and get the most out of what I offer, you really have to do the journaling and the reading, because you learn what you don't have and what you want by reading. And then you like sort through it all by journaling. So.
You agree with that part, especially the journaling part, Jodielynn? I asked just, this is very much a lead-up question, Matt. I don't know if you realize this, but Jodielynn is like a consummate note taker. She's been taking notes throughout this entire conversation. I mean, this all the time. So I was setting her up with a softball question.
I love journaling, and it really got me through a lot. And I use it as a tool because I love it. But I've definitely encountered the people that are like, I hate journaling. I think you have to like, I think what you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like the depth of what you're trying to say is you got to do something. And journaling really helps figure out what it is you're thinking about, or like all of this mess of things that's going on within. That was the easiest way for me. And I think you have to do something. You have to learn something new. You have to do something different, because if you continue to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, Einstein says you're insane. So I agree. And of course, I take lots of notes on everything.
I think it's so important. And it's just like, I'm able to sort through, like the reason like that reading and journaling are the two things that I kind of like don't know how to help somebody. And I kind of don't, because like you're coming to a session and you're like, I don't really know what I want for my life. Like, I think I'm happy here. Well, you need to expose yourself to other people's stories so you know that like other things are possible for yourself. Like for me, I have exposed myself to enough stories of people who are living lives that feel generally pleasurable. And well, there's not always pleasure in every part of life, but people who are spending their careers specifically doing things that they enjoy. And some of them are making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And some of them only work a few hours a day doing something. Like that's showing me that I could have the same. And it's something that I have worked to go after. But if I wouldn't have exposed myself to that, I would never know what I don't have. And on the other side of that too, like I've seen a lot of people have, I'm a huge reader, and I've seen a lot of people that are living lives that are really enjoyable for themselves that aren't making as much money. I live in Los Angeles. It's very expensive. It is an option where I could probably do something like I could probably be a full-time writer and probably move to Maine or something where things are a lot less expensive. But we have choices, and that's what you take to the journaling pad, and you start to like sort through these things, and you realize that none of these things are out of reach. We're actually able to, like, we all have choices. People don't like to hear that because it makes people feel a lot like less help. Like people want to be, rendered helpless a lot of times so they don't have to change their situation. But we can change whatever we want to. There's always a choice. It might not be a very good one, but there is a choice. And I like to say on the other side of setting a boundary or making a hard choice is freedom. I mean, like you're getting yourself out of a situation that you're not happy in when you make that hard choice.
Yeah, I wish we had more time to talk about it, because you touched on something that is, it's one of my favorite topics, but it's also one that is not the favorite topic of many people, which is taking responsibility for where you're at and saying, yeah, I'm the one who's doing this. That's not something people like doing. That's something that many people will do everything they can to avoid, and not just what's going on with their own lives, what's going on with their greater society, or what's going on in their circle, or what's going on, all these things that they're happening to me and I can't control it. And anyone who says otherwise isn't dealing with reality, and they got their head buried in the sand, and it's that same kind of a narrative. Wow, that narrative in all of its forms, I think that probably holds more people back than anything else I can think of. That one narrative.
I mean, I've been there, and it's because like you don't want to, because that choice is going to hurt. I'm thinking of like, it's really like, it's a boundary thing, like my grandmother used to be she was always very good to me, but she was a very big martyr, and she liked to render herself helpless and a victim of everything, because on the other side of her, like if she would have like said what she needed, she would have had to set a boundary and tell somebody that they can't do certain things. And and I guess like, you did kind of strike a chord. I just want to say one small thing about it. It's just like that, like, if you feel that way where like you are helpless, it's not your fault. Like you were raised around something like that, that's made you feel that you have to remain helpless and complacent. But like, I got a lot of freedom realizing that like, it wasn't my fault that like, that's the way it is. It's not your fault what happened, but it is your responsibility to change. And when I heard that for the first time, I like stopped and I was like, oh, like that just makes this makes a lot more sense now.
Well, we could have so much fun talking about that one, but unfortunately we're out of time, so I can't do it. But what I do want to do is I want to make sure we cover a couple of things before we finish up. First and foremost, for somebody who does want to reach out to you, maybe somebody wants to come to one of your dinner parties, but for somebody who wants to reach out, how do they reach you? How do they find you?
I don't normally give away my email address, but it's totally fine here. Matt@mattgerlach.com. My website is mattgerlach.com. I'm on all the socials, Instagram and TikTok, LinkedIn are where I'm most active. So you can reach out anywhere, but I encourage you to email me. And if you want to get a jump start on some changes that you want to make, at the top of my website, there is a workbook that is really the distillation of my entire life's work in terms of what I've learned, that you can download and start getting and start working through your goals and identifying what you want in life, and most importantly, what's holding you back. And in that workbook, you can schedule a free call with me for 45 minutes and go through any things that might be sticking you. So
good stuff. Yeah.
that'd
And
be
I haven't really pushed this in the past, but I'll mention it here because I think it's important. You do what so many people have done. You offer something that people can download for free and get some information out of it. And it occurs to me that's a great thing to do, regardless of whether you want the thing itself, because it tells you a whole lot about the person who provided it.
It
And if
does.
you're trying to figure out whether or not that's somebody who might be the right one to work with, that's a great way to find out who they are.
Mhm.
Right? Because that like you said, that's a distillation of all of your life, of the way that you put your life together. What a better way to get to know Matt real fast than to download the thing and do it. I mean,
Totally
perfect, real simple. I love that.
So learn about me.
A second thing I like to do is I like to point something out and express some appreciation on something that gets overlooked, because we now live in an age where self-promotion and building our brands and all that kind of thing involves coming onto podcasts and writing articles and doing all this stuff, social media, all the things that we do to get the word out. And in the process, we're helping people with things that very often we don't even know what we're helping them on. And they're getting results we don't even hear about. And it's very easy for us to kind of get into the place of thinking, well, am I making a difference? Is it really happening? And we aren't getting the feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you don't know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's very interesting. And like what you said, Jodielynn, it's just like, I mean, this is the journey. And like, there is still, I mean, I'm not perfect. Like there is a destination that deep down I am feeling dissatisfaction from sometimes not being at yet. And it's a practice. This is why we call life a practice like this, you know. I mean, it's a practice every day to remember that like this is the journey. And I did ask myself, now I'm like, do you really need, like, what does it matter if you make like X amount of dollars today versus, I mean, it's fine. It's just like, you know, it's just a practice to remember to, I think what's happening for me a lot right now is like, I've made a lot of peace around the financial implications of a change, but it's that I want to, I mean, here I'm saying it. I alluded this earlier. I just want to spend my days doing what I enjoy then. And I said this earlier, I felt some dysregulation around some things that I put on my calendar over these past couple of days, which are things that I shouldn't have put on my calendar because they're not really how I want to spend my time. And yeah,
good stuff. Yeah. Well, you actually also, you set up the final thing without realizing it, because the final thing I like to do is have my co-host kind of tie the whole thing together and summarize what this conversation is meant to her. And you basically set her up. So Jodielynn, you actually got a setup this time. What are you going to do with it?
I think today was so amazing. Thank you, Matt, for being here in this conversation. And as you know, as entrepreneurs, we're all over the place talking about a lot of things. There's a lot of capacity there, but I think the highlight of today, or the byline of today, and I'm going to lean on some words that you've already said that I wrote down in my notes. You get to choose the box. You don't have to fit into everyone else's box. And this comes to your priorities, your values, the way that you live your life. And I think it's so beautiful what you said, embrace and love yourself. And that, I think, Matt, and I think you'll like this one, is the recipe for success and how to turn your life and this present moment into a present, a real present. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you, Matt, for joining us, and best of luck. Good luck with the get-togethers, first of all, and good luck with building the new biz. I mean, you're definitely on the right path.
Thank you. This is all on YouTube, by the way, so I'm posting like the preparation. And there's the whole cooking. I didn't realize that I didn't say that, but this is all the food preparation and cooking stuff is making its way to YouTube. So
fantastic. So you don't have to be in LA to benefit from it. That's even better.
LA to benefit.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.